Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish Prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Well, folks, welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. It's lovely to have you here again. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined tonight by Neale Hanvey. I've got my teeth in here, Neale. Who's no stranger to the show. Welcome, Neale. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Roddy. Thanks very much for asking.
Good. Are you excited on the eve of the inaugural Alba conference?
Partly, my excitement is rather constrained by the fact that I had steroid injections into my hip this afternoon, or this morning rather, for my arthritic hips. So I'm a little bit subdued with painkillers. So if I stumble my words, that's what I'll blame.
Yeah, well, I do it without painkillers all the time. But the mood is. I mean, I've been talking to a few of my friends and pals, and the excitement is building. I mean, this is a big deal to these people who have been feeling, shall we say, somewhat estranged from independence for a while. And it's a great chance for these people all to get together again. You too must be excited.
I'm really looking forward to being in a room full of independence supporters who are unashamed that that's their principal ambition for Scotland. I'm looking forward to exchanging ideas and just chatting about our experience, because there's quite a lot of healing to be done at this conference, not least the realisation that the party that we thought was the vehicle for independence had completely lost its way. And we're seeing more and more examples of that over the last 6 months that have just really, for me, consolidated my view that moving over to Alba, however challenging it may be, was absolutely the right decision to make.
I agree wholeheartedly. I was going to ask you a few other things first, but now that you've touched on it, you're saying over the last 6 months, over the last 12, 24 hours.
Indeed.
One of the biggest things. How did you take to? I mean, I've been looking at it. We have had the 4 nations for COVID. 4 nations apparently to look at our oil reserves, and now she's getting a Westminster statutory instrument to stop us protesting. We have the SNP of the party of protest.
Yeah, it's bewildering when you think back to the poll tax protests and Kenny McCaskill on the front line of those protests and campaigning for justice for the people of Scotland. We've now got a political party that has cancelled a publicly owned energy company, drawing on our renewable energy sources, banning protests outside its own parliament, using a foreign parliament's legislation to prohibit that. This, let's call it exactly what it is. It's a UK-led COVID strategy, and it's a UK-led energy strategy. It has all been gifted away without a whimper. And how anyone can realistically believe that the Scottish Government's ambition is to further the cause of Scottish independence is bewildering to me and to you and to many others who are looking on. But it's the almost fanaticism that exists around the personality of Nicola Sturgeon that you're not able to criticise her policies, because that is seen as a personal attack on individuals who have, like many of us have done, invested a huge amount in the party. But it really is so bewildering that they cannot see that the party that they believed they joined is morphing into something that is fundamentally quite sinister.
For sure. What the excuse they're coming up with now is, it was the committee that did it. Nothing to do with Nicola or the SNP. It was Jackson Carlo. That's just a nonsense, because you need to have a government minister would have to sign this off. They couldn't act on their own.
Well, I mean, you can't wash your hands of the actions of your own government. You are the government. And if the government have a problem with something of this nature, then they are able to step in and prevent that from going forward. It's a nonsense. Wisney me seems to be the standard reply when something challenging comes along. And it's, one of the biggest challenges this week is agreeing with Murdo Fraser, not once but twice.
I know.
In his well, rather cynical, I have to say, but important comment about the women's movement outside Parliament last week, which I was very happy to attend, and it was great to see such an uplifting representation from women supporters outside Parliament. It was a great event, really well attended, and really important voices like Rona Hotchkiss and others, Marion Miller, and those speakers. They're really powerful. It was fantastic. But for Murdo's got his own baggage when it comes to women's rights. So whilst I'm glad he said it, he's maybe not the best voice to be saying it. But Nicola's utter dismissal of women's concerns, both in the chamber in response to that, and again, I read today that she has completely ruled out any consideration of their concerns in the GRA debate. It's no way to lead a country to ignore 50% of the population.
She said she'd looked at all the evidence and the women's concerns were not valid.
Set it out, Nick. Set it out, Nicola. Stand up and put your position to the people. It's just not good enough.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I don't believe in coincidences, and to me, it's no coincidence that our Nicola was getting booed and her name was getting booed, yes. And then a few days later, this instrument gets introduced to stop protests. Yeah. And I think she may just have bitten off more than she can chew this time, because the feeling I'm getting is that a lot of people are not prepared to sit down and let this just happen.
No, I don't think they are. I'm certainly not. I've had my battles with Nicola Sturgeon's leadership. Going back to before my election as an independent, and when you think about the outrage about my comments, which actually I won't go into them because it's not going to be helpful, but weren't directly critical of anyone specifically. It was a reflection, and if it offended people, I apologized at the time and I stand by that apology. However, when you see subsequent comments from a range of different parliamentary candidates and parliamentarians in the SNP, and the most recent outrages from Jane Godley, who is a pal of Nicola's, when you try and measure the outrage that was put on for me, and you measure it against some of the stuff these other people are saying, you can just see that the target was not about, and that's the cynicism that I absolutely think is detestable, is that if I had been racist or I had been completely out of order, then fair enough, but in no measure could it be held in any way against the despicable language, both disableist, racist, and filthy language from Jane Godley. It really shows you that Nicola Sturgeon is prepared to target anyone who disagrees with her, particularly on GRA. And it's a tragedy. This is so unnecessary. I could have been, if she had an ear to listen, I could have been a force for good in this whole debate. I could have brought the sides together and come to a solution that would have been helpful, because I do believe that there needs to be a better understanding and visibility of the trans community. And I don't think anybody's arguing against that. But the way that this has been done is to ignore safeguarding. And none of us, you, me, anyone, nobody is exempt from safeguarding. And you cannot have a slice of the population that are exempt from those fundamental principles of safety. And that is a government responsibility. And for Nicola Sturgeon to ignore that is a dereliction of her responsibility as First Minister.
Yep. And if they are, as she says, not valid, as you say, come out and explain to us how they're not valid then. Tell us how.
There is no circumstance where the principles of safeguarding are not valid. None. Not in any circumstance. I have dealt with some horrendous cases of child neglect and abuse in my career in the NHS. I have dealt with members of staff who have accessed child pornography from the NHS site, and we've managed to catch them and boot them out. You know, these kind of people will pop up anywhere there is a weakness in the system that allows them to a cloak of anonymity, and to be able to completely change your identity without any safeguarding or any checks and balances. That's not about limiting the liberty of the trans community at all. It's about protecting them from infiltrators. It's about protecting all of us from people who would abuse those rights. And that's a standard principle of safeguarding. It's not about any particular community. Everybody has a responsibility to uphold them. And I worry deeply when politicians argue that anyone's got a free pass.
I mean, I know with the people I've spoken with in this debate, who are willing to debate, the people who are protecting women's rights, not one of them has said they're against trans at all, whatsoever. No. In fact, they're saying, you know, go back and we're with them. What we're worried about is our safety, our rights. And so can we talk about it? Answer is no, you can't. Yes. So you can't have a debate. We're not going to allow it under any circumstances. Now that tells me that they're not on very solid ground if you're scared to stand your corner and debate it.
Yeah, or the, you know, the worst case scenario, there's an ulterior motive. Now, I don't want to go there, but you know, why would you argue against protecting women and children and other vulnerable people? Why would you argue against that? What could possibly? I mean, just take the trans community out of it for a moment and just talk about that principle. On what grounds would anyone argue or put forward that there is a justification for anyone to be exempted from those principles, that anyone has a free pass? I don't think that stands up to scrutiny. And you know, and it's not just me that's saying that. You know, I've been a leader in the LGBT community locally. This is absolutely not about the trans community. As far as I'm concerned, it's about that fundamental principle. And I believe that having that role locally, being a politician and having the experience of child protection throughout my NHS career, that would have counted for something in Nicola Sturgeon's team, that she would have wanted to understand my concerns and valued that contribution. And the response was to target and vilify me. And I don't understand that. I don't get that.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about just earlier. The fact is that people come and demonstrate against Nicola, and so she stopped demonstrations were all allowed to happen. If you're putting up criticism to her policy, we vilify you, we'll throw you out the party, take away the support. You know, I saw a tweet which was, if we don't like independence journalists, jail them. If we don't, you know, all these things, she just will not allow anyone to have a different opinion. It really is a worry. If you think about it, I read an article this week where 19% of Scottish children are living in poverty.
Yeah.
And we're not prioritising that with the powers we've got, but she's prioritising something for this tiny minority. Not that I'm against the tiny, but let me make that clear. I'm saying there's 19% of our children tonight, Neil, are going to bed hungry, maybe cold, without light, and we're doing nothing.
And where is the action to counter the £20 cut to working tax credits and universal credit? Where's the action and the response to that? Where's the response to the national insurance uplift to pay for the defunding and defenestration of the social care system in England? Where is the Scottish Government response to that? I mean, Ian Blackford can get up in the chamber in Westminster and call it a new poll tax, whatever he wants, but there is nothing more that he can do than complain. You know, there's no vote we can win on this. So what is the Scottish Government going to do to respond to these kinds of policies and to protect the people of Scotland? And I don't hear anything. The Scottish child payments due to come in, that should be uplifted immediately to £40 to cover the impact of the universal credit and working tax credit cuts. Absolutely, because poverty is one of the biggest drivers of inequality and leads to drug misuse and substance misuse in later life. It really is the absolute scourge, and it's also essential to lift people out of poverty to protect the NHS. So the less people you've got in poverty, the less pressure there is on the NHS, because you have people who live healthier lifestyles, and they don't put the same demands on inpatient services, whether that's heart and lung disease in later life, or all of the other standard kind of impacts of that kind of unhealthy eating and drinking lifestyle. So, there is no argument to stand back from these challenges. There's no excuse to stand back from these challenges, and there's absolutely no excuse to sign up to UK-wide policies hand in glove with Boris Johnson across a whole range of measures and just accept these policies lying down.
Yeah, and I mean, in the programme for government that was released this week, there was nothing there that said to me that there was anything on the horizon going to alleviate any of these problems. And the fact that they're prioritising this GRA reform as their big bill of the year, when they don't push independence, when they don't push doing something about poverty, it tells us all we need. There's only the only independent parties left now are ALPA and ISP. That's just a fact.
That's true, and so moving on to that particular point, the independence is not something for the hereafter, something that can be kicked down the road, and while we somehow miraculously recover from COVID on the back of an economic policy that's driven by Westminster, that's just not credible. It's an absolutely ludicrous position. The priorities for the Scottish people need to be about securing independence, developing an economic strategy that develops our priorities, like new house building, and to give real benefit for the economic from the wind and tidal and renewable sector that is sitting right off the coast from Fife, and it's hardly having any impact on jobs in the Fife area. It's an absolute outrage, and I know from first-hand experience. I've done a huge amount of work on the energy opportunities in Fife, in my constituency and surrounding constituencies, when we were responding to the BIFAB debacle. And I looked across a whole range of different issues, pulled in academics from the University of St Andrews, and I spoke to SPADs at the Scottish Government linked to Nicola Sturgeon and to Fiona Hislop, and they weren't interested, Roddy. They're not interested. They're not pursuing a solution to contracts for difference. They're not securing opportunities that are attached to contracts that are awarded, where part of the contract is that manufacturing and jobs must come to the coast where the project is being developed offshore. So none of these things, these key drivers that we were promised way back when in 2016, as part of this commitment to develop a publicly owned energy company, which has also now been completely discarded. None of these things have happened. That's why BIFAB went down the tubes, because the Scottish Government were not smart about it. They weren't interested enough, and they didn't have the energy or commitment to drive these things forward. It's really frustrating.
Absolutely. I mean, the excuses they're giving for not having the energy company after the big falderage she did at conference to throw some salt to the faithful, they just don't stand up to scrutiny, do they?
No. I mean, I have had a really difficult couple of years for obvious reasons that people know about, but the most frustrating thing has been that real lack of appetite to challenge the Westminster system, and my sense that people are comfortable in their jobs as MPs, and that we now see, and that was the second thing that I agreed with Murdo Fraser, was his observation that Nicola Sturgeon is now using the carrot of independence just to retain power. It's not about driving Scotland forward. I mean, these are the warm words that are repeated, and it's almost, like Labour singing the red flag at the end of conference, oh, independence, but there's nothing concrete being done. There's no energy or commitment to it. And I found that so dispiriting. And when you raise those kinds of issues, and when I did so in the Westminster group, you get shouted down and being accused of being a splittist, and all of the kind of, it's like the unionist rhetoric coming back at you. You just kind of think, you guys are just lost. You're lost. And so enough about them. So this weekend we get a chance to set out a really positive vision, an absolute commitment to independence, a proper strategy for lifting the country out of the COVID impacts, both in terms of our health recovery, but also economically, and how we build that future based on an independent country.
Yep. I mean, the agenda is exciting, Neil. There is no getting away with it. I mean, I haven't seen one that's as exciting in a long while. There is the commitment to independence, which takes preference the way it should be. That's above all. We're going to set up also a grouping to specifically look at that. We're talking about the monarchy. These subjects that they're scared to talk about in the essay, these have got to be put in place. Currency, banking. Now, there's a lot, and there's so many. I mean, do you have any particular favourite you sort of penciled in? I'll have a wee chat at that one, and I'll have a few words to say about that one or this one. Have you got any particular favourites?
Well, I think the one that is most important to me is the independence resolution, but the other one, the one that I'll be moving myself, will be the COVID recovery motion. So they are probably the ones that are really interesting to me. But one of the things that I really want to do at this conference, and I'm very conscious, I get a platform like this and in the chamber quite a lot. What I want to do at conference is to listen to members. I want to hear what they think is important, because this has got to be a membership-led party, and we've got to demonstrate that we truly do walk the talk, and so that's really where my focus will be. The other thing that I probably will want to speak to is the women's motion. However, I don't want to take up the space of a woman who may want to speak in that motion, because again, I go back to that point. It's really important that those voices are heard. But there's a perspective to the women's motion that I think is important to put forward. I've spoken about it briefly before, but that is, there has been a historically strong link between the women's movement and the LGBT movement and other civil rights movements right through the years, right through into the 19th century and the suffrage movement, and from then forward. And what really troubles me and disappoints me is that now we see that relationship being fractured by people who are not members. Well, that's not strictly true. People who would seek to fracture those movements. And I think the homophobic bullying of the guy at the Manchester Pride being kicked out of his own pride by a young entitled white British woman shouting at him and hounding him out of his own celebratory event was just the most shameful thing I've seen in years. And I wouldn't want to go to a Pride, and having been chair of the local Pride for 2 years, I find that astounding that I would feel so uncomfortable going, because the tone of those events has just been transformed in the most toxic way.
There's money somewhere, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Somewhere. And the one thing I'd say, a small criticism I've heard levelled at the conference coming up this weekend, is there are so many big meaty subjects. I mean, you literally could spend a day on the independence debate. I think the monarchy debate and the nuclear debate, both on Trident and on nuclear power, could take up the whole conference. So some people say, well, maybe there's just too many resolutions to give them fair hearing. I think some might be remitted back.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's always that, there is that, there's that facility. And so if that argument is well made and there is an opportunity for policy to be developed further, then that's a matter for conference. It's not a matter for any individual to make that choice. And so that is exciting, actually, because there's a possibility that something will be remitted back, and and that's good. That should be welcome. Why is that a bad thing? I think, I'm hoping that the resolutions that have been accepted by the inaugural conference committee have been tailored effectively. And certainly, you know, I had a few notes on mine, and I tightened it up before it was formally accepted. I think that's been a really helpful piece of work. So, you know, there may be amendments from the floor. There may be, you know, a bit of furore on some issues. I don't anticipate there being any major difficulty with many of the resolutions, but there are a whole list of other things like currency and central banking and the like that are not in conference, and I think that's because we can't have everything. We've tried to get as much on as possible. I think the conference committee and TAS have done a tremendous job getting us to where we are. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be certainly a much more interesting conference than the conference I had last year and the party I was in then.
Well, I do hope, as I know for any of the old stagers out there who are listening to us today, I do hope Alpa's got Jerry Fisher, because then we can be assured that they'll not slide in under the radar, and there will be something remitted back for sure. So let's hope we do find one of them.
I mean, I think there are people who are not, you know, they're not afraid to speak because, and some of them are quite brave because they felt absolutely silenced in the SNP, and they felt that they were the problem. And there's quite a lot of people who have had a difficult journey, and we've got to be sensitive to each other when we do raise concerns and not be too well, I say aggressive. I just mean, you know, too forceful in our put downs or our responses. Sorry, that's the phone ringing. I hope it's not good.
I think it's safe to say, though, Neil, that no one will be booed on the stage for mentioning the word independence or wanting to just.
Yeah. Well, I sincerely hope not. That was probably one of the saddest moments of any SNP conference I've ever been at, and that was a challenging conference from start to finish, I have to say.
Yeah, it was appalling, and you know, the other thing I've always said is that the Alpha Party really is the fundamental wing of the SNP, because most of the people you go there, you're going to know anyway. You'll have seen them at SNP conferences for years.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and we know that we've got the activist base, or a large slice of it, and certainly when I've been invited to Lacus to speak, it's been quite interesting because now that we're online, you know, you get the faces all pop up, and then you see people going, "Oh, I didn't know you were in the Alpha Party. When did you join?" And so it's been quite interesting to see that connection take place. And you know, I mean, we've got a mountain to climb, but we've got an opponent party who seem determined to drive anyone who's seriously interested in independence from their ranks. And you know, it's when that shift in understanding happens that I think we'll see a major transfer of members across. You know, there's going to be a realization sooner rather than later that, you know, and I'm quite happy to be proven wrong, Roddy. You know, if the SNP astound me and hold a successful referendum that they act like they're intending to win, I'll be happy. I will be happy, and I'll happily campaign in that referendum. But I doubt it. Yeah,
I was going to say, if you believe that, I've got a nice bridge I would like to talk to you about for cash. Yes. You know, the last, you know, because there's so many activists, I don't think there'll be people shy getting up to the microphone. That's for sure, and that's good. And I'm really excited and looking forward to seeing the whole Pankashigo held. I'm afraid reasons keep me away.
Yes.
And but I hope for spring conference that, you know, we have got our arms around COVID and I can make an appearance. Yeah. But I'd like to thank you very much, Neil, for as usual. You always make time, never let me down, or the show, and we really appreciate that you do take the time to come and speak to us. And give a regards to everyone, and enjoy, and we'll get you back to hear all about it.
Okay, great stuff, Roddy.
In the meantime, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have.
Fabulous. Neil never fails to give us value for money. Thank you again, Neil. And now to two of the Alba delegates, and I have to make a confession, good buddies of mine, straight from Greenock, who are going to give us their update. I'm joined by Denise and John Duffy, my good old buddy from Barrhead. another one of the Barhead mental men. Nice to see you. And Mrs. D, is she well?
She very well, yeah.
Good. Is she sober?
Absolutely. We've got a long drive ahead of us after today, you know.
Tell her, send my regards. Denise, my friend, I'm just wondering, Denise, are you still going to talk to us now that you're a superstar and you're going to be charging thousands to do tours with speeches and, Tony Blair gets 22 grand or 200 grand a speech. There's a business there, love. You were absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, I'm quite a cheap date, Roddy. You can probably get me for, a pint of Diet Coke.
But you were absolutely fabulous, and the content, everything. And I'm not just saying that because you're a buddy, but it truly was good. But the whole, from me, sadly I can't, as you know, for health reasons, be there. But it was from afar. The excitement. Tell me, John, am I kidding myself on, or was there, as they say in football parlance, a buzz about the place?
Yeah, very definitely. There's a palpable sense of excitement, and I think people are just euphoric that they've found a party that's actually in line with their hopes and ambitions. Mm-hmm. And I think it was easy to feel that. Very much a sense of togetherness.
It came across, I've got to say. Denise, did you have a particular good moment? Setting aside your own fantastic speech and Heather's as well, I have to tell her she was fabulous. Did you have a particular moment that really got you? Did you get, I'm home, this is where I should be, or one of those feelings?
Yeah, very at the beginning. I think when Kenny McCaskill had a little speech, and Alex Salmon, just like when they first started, it felt like that. Everybody was so excited, and then all the first resolutions were about independence and what we were going to do for independence. And so suddenly now you were back to like a reality of independence instead of this distant kind of possibility dream, like it probably won't happen, but maybe now is not the time of independence that we get fed by the SNP. Instead, it's like, this is it, we're going for independence. We are the Independence Party. We're going to be campaigning for independence from now. We have been, a lot of people have been doing it all their lives, but now we've got a party that's doing it, not a party that's holding us back.
And John, what really gets me, and which I found really tremendous, was we're not scared to debate controversial subjects. Getting rid of the royal family.
Yeah.
You and I have been about for a long while. You know how I feel about that, and I'm trying to
absolutely.
not spell too much.
I don't think it's given away too many secrets to say that you wouldn't be waiting till Lizzie passed on. And I'm much. I have to say that I agree with the guy who came on to refer that back, saying that waiting until Lizzie died is probably a bad idea, and I tend to agree with that. But the problem was that the way that he'd coupled it with something else. So if he'd put them as separate issues, we could maybe agree with one or other. But because I happen to agree that we could be, if we say we're waiting till the monarch dies, the monarch by that time might be William, and that could be, you could be waiting a while,
Yeah, but that's not really the case. You have to look at the intent of the motion, not just like over words. The current monarch in that motion means the current queen. Just to quibble over trying to parse words so carefully, and it's a motion, not a law. So the intent of the Alpha Party is not to have a monarchy, to have an independent Scottish Republic. And that's what Chris McElhenney said. And that, I think, was one of the tearing up moments, to be honest, Rod. And of course, when the women's inequalities went through, and also the sex, the prostitution, that is such a minefield subject. And when I seen it on the agenda, I was a bit like, wow, we're tackling this. But then if you think about the kind of Scotland that we would want, for people to live in dignity, and prostitution is not a dignity for anyone, So I do think that we tackled the gender debate, the prostitution debate, the monarchy, And, you know, running through it all is our total commitment to an independent Scotland with urgency, not hanging around, not begging Boris Johnson, just getting on with it and getting independence.
What we want to hear, as I said, John, it's I view Alba Party as the fundamental wing of the SNP, because you two know, most of the people you met there, you're meeting again today, we're all ex-SNP in the main, 90-odd% of us, which means it has to bring me on to Moira, God bless her cotton socks, the 89-year-old, 60 years in the SNP. And if you notice today on social media, guess what? They're attacking her. Not saying, why are we losing members of 60 years standing? You know, if you've got, John, if you've got a business and you're losing a customer you've had for 60 years, you want to know why you're losing your customer.
Absolutely. There should be it should be something of a matter of urgency. I mean, Moira might well be a high profile leaver from the SNP, but there will be thousands of them.
You're in a hall full of them.
And the fact that they've done nothing to try and address it, you know, rather than what they've done is actually release numbers to say that it's not happening. No, people aren't leaving. No, that's not the case. You know, it's like, you know, you can just see them with their head in the sand.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I know myself from anything. As soon as I put something out, I'm apparently a Tory Yoon.
Yeah, but we've known that for a while, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that's their standard. It's just that's you're a Yoon, you're a Tory. You're old. It doesn't matter. Instead of saying we have a problem, Houston, and we need to address it, they don't want to address it. But this is exactly, Denise, what the Labour Party did, and you know you're better than any. That's exactly what the Labour did. They ignored and didn't see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, but I also think the big thing yesterday for me, which was the most emotional moment, I would say, for myself, and was the one where I was quite, you know, tearful, was the award to Grousbeater. It was just so fantastic. He came, you know, I'm quite upset even thinking about it, because he was treated, you know, a man that had devoted his life to the cause of independence and to the SNP, and who had a reputation, a fantastic reputation. And the SNP, Fiona Robertson actually, and Angus MacLeod trashed it, and Nicola Sturgeon, you know, and to see him come on, and it's a small thing maybe, but to us, to see him come on that stage and receive such a standing ovation, and to see Alex Salmond giving him respect. So you see, that's the difference. That's the difference between Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon. Nicola Sturgeon has no respect for anyone. She just cares about herself. Whereas Alex Salmond and the whole place give Grousbeater a massive standing ovation, and it was fantastic to see him and redress a little bit of the harm that the SNP did to him. No. And then the other big moment was in Craig Murray's wife and child came on the stage. Same thing, and that little boy who's deprived of
Thank you for coming.
And make no mistake, pin that on Nicola Sturgeon as well, because this is her laws, her government, her environment, her toxic environment that she's created in Scotland. Come on the stage and again receive an ovation, and knowing that they have our support. And but then later I saw a picture, and it's a picture of Alex Salmond sitting, just the two of them, with Marion Miller. So I'm looking at these victims, these casualties of Nicola Sturgeon and her, you know, corrupt, power-crazed government, and they're getting support.
Sorry, I'm having to go on the move with some locals celebrating behind.
It's Greenock, mate. It's Greenock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I used to live in the wee dirty wee port, so I know it well. Yes, yeah.
So
that's the first time I've known you to be walking away from the bevy, John. That's all I'm saying. But on Grousbeater, John, I mean, I obviously declare an interest, but it was kind of emotional.
It was very. I have to say, though, looks can be deceptive. Gareth looked particularly well, I have to say, which surprised me more than a little, you know. But
Pleasantly surprised.
What a moment! It was. It's one of those that you'll remember for ever and a day. There were a couple of moments, as Denise rightly said, when Nadira Murray spoke on behalf of her husband. What I thought was quite amusing was that she'd stand in ovation at the end, and after everybody sat down and the wee boy came to the.
Yeah, we're losing you. You've moved, John, but you're losing your signal a bit. If you can hear me, if you can step back a wee bit, you'll be all right. Okay, well, yeah, he's out, he's gone. It was very emotional. So there's some highlights today, Denise. What ones are you looking forward to today?
Well, I have another speech, which is really quite a challenge, I can tell you. So I have the EFTA motion, and so after yesterday, and I kind of was like very nervous before the speech yesterday because
didn't come across that way.
Didn't know. Oh God, I was
no. I thought, oh, my lassie's doing well. I thought,
but women's rights being kind of my thing. But I also sent in a motion for EFTA membership, and that was chosen. So I have that speech today. So of course, I looked at what I was going to say, and it's a little bit dry, shall we say. So I've spiced it up. So
good.
We'll see how it goes.
But it is,
and of course, the big speech, which is going to be the moment when Alex Salmond speaks.
Oh, makes a speech, I know. Yep.
And the thing about that is, which makes it, it's the beginning, really the official beginning of our getting our independence.
Yep, I've got my popcorn at the ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. 4:30. Yeah. It's something not to be missed. Although I'll be watching the whole thing, and I really, really, really wish I could be there. So nothing will stop me for the spring conference. Absolutely nothing, medical or otherwise. I'll be there.
But the thing about it is that after what he's been through and the way that the press and Nicola Sturgeon and the government and they've been stitched up and the way that he's been treated, is to come out onto a stage and have 700 people cheering, so 700 independent supporters, his party. It's just, I think, going to be an amazing moment. And that's when the dream, the dream that will never die, that's when the dream is going to be, began. And we're going to make it a reality. We're going to get independence. And we are the only party that can do it, because right off the SNP, they are going nowhere. I heard that this young guy joined the SNP and he didn't know that they supported independence. He joined them for climate, green stuff, and obviously the gender.
He was right. They don't do independent stuff. That's the problem.
They supported independence. Yeah. It's certainly not their priority. So, obviously we've got a task, at work ahead of us and a task ahead of us. But, we're the party to do it. And Alex Salmond is the guy to do it.
Well, I'm getting a message here. John's just trying to reconnect, to rejoin us. He had to move away from some young lads partaking of a local wine, made by monks.
A couple of questions, and then you can redo him.
Hopefully, John will rejoin us. But the whole thing yesterday, and I'm not going to talk about them. I'm not interested really, because it's of no interest, because this is like the old days I remember, where there was an electricity in the room, and we were up against it, and we had one MP, maybe Donald Stewart, up there in the Western Isles, and a couple of councillors here and there, and it was a hard shift. But we just knew that we were eventually, sooner or later, going to make that breakthrough, and it came with a rush. And same as I say, I put a blog out yesterday referring to the Berlin Wall, and it's the same here. It's wee things that happen And I've got a funny feeling some of the things that have been happening recently, and with the stopping of protests and this fantastic conference, Denise, could just be the boost that's required to really kick Alba on and get Alba rising and more rising. You get that feeling?
Yeah, I think, this is really the launch of Alba. Launching a party in a pandemic and trying to do an election after like 5 or 6 weeks. And now we're having our first conference. So this is really the launch of it. And it's launching with over 6,000 members. Yep. So the membership will grow. But as more and more people, as the scales fall off from their eyes and more people see the true nature of the SNP and that they are not an independence party. In fact, they're the obstacle to independence.
Yep.
They are what's stopping us being independent. Because to be quite frank, with a decent leader, we could have been led to independence at any point over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But we haven't had that.
Correct.
We've had a leader that's holding us back. Nicola Sturgeon is holding Scotland back. So once people start to scales fall off from their eyes and we harness the independence movement, then things will change. And of course, we've got the council elections, so we need to get a reasonable number of councillors. Mm-hmm. But after the council elections, we have the Westminster general election, and that could be the turning point.
It should be a plebiscite.
Because Alba can stand on a manifesto that says, vote for me and we declare independence tomorrow.
Yep.
And then declare independence.
Absolutely. We could do it today. We could recall if we had a decent leader in the SNP, she could recall all the MPs, have a grand assembly and declare the Treaty of Union is over. Yeah. And then say...
Either Sturgeon is working completely controlled by the British state, or she's the most incompetent strategist that, could ever. So
I'm going for B.
She's the most incompetent strategist.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give her a chance of achieving independence for us. Not a chance. She's got no game, as they say. She's got no strategy. She's got no courage. She never stands against Boris Johnson. She couldn't do a lot to stand against Boris Johnson, but she never does. She's going to, you want our powers? Here you go. She's going to deliver
here's our oil. You want
powers on a plate to Boris Johnson over the next year.
I don't know if you've had a chance to find out today, but on the Mars show, apparently, Javid has turned around and said they've changed their mind about vaccine passports.
Oh, right.
How long before our Nicola goes, I've changed my mind. Have you, love? Have you? Aye, really? Aye, did you?
That's a total trap, because the Tories came out against vaccine passports.
So, her Four Nations strategy, this will be funny to watch her trying to do this.
By them every blooming time. Yep. Totally, like the British state can pull the plug on Sturgeon anytime they want.
Yeah, but they won't, because she's no threat to the union. She's zero threat to the union. Alec, on the other hand, and the Alba party, big time threat. Yeah. And now, mark my words, I'll be writing about it tomorrow for sure. But and I noticed today at the STV, again, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, when they were announcing the Republican part of the Alba conference.
Okay.
They said 4 times they made the reference to, like the President of Ireland, like Ireland, trying to bring in the sectarian Ulsterisation of Scotland. They want to make it a religious thing and not a political. Disgusting, but it's what we can expect. That's what they will do.
We're in for, they will throw everything at us.
Oh, yeah.
And that, but the way I look at it is not going to be easy regaining independence. And this is just the reality of what we have to deal with. We have to play the hands we're dealt. And we're dealt an incredibly hostile press and propaganda and a pretendy independence party that's in power and is fooling people that they're an independence party.
Yep.
And so that's our hand. And we've got a leader that the pretendy independence party have completely screwed over and stitched up, but he's brave enough and has enough courage to get back in the ring.
Cool. When you tell the truth,
We're
it's
in the
easy to be
ring.
courageous. It is, because we're telling the truth.
Amazing courage. And
Yeah.
we're in the ring, you know.
Yeah, of course we are.
So,
Yeah, but here's the thing that they won't tell you about Ireland and our decision on the monarchy. What they won't mention about Ireland is what happened in 1919 with the Irish nationalist parties at Westminster, who too had sold out the Irish independence and Home Rule. And Sinn Féin and their MPs took all their seats and declared independence.
exactly.
And that's the one reference the British media won't make, that the Alba party could replace the SNP in one fell swoop and declare independence. And let's hope they do. Now, look, I know you're desperate to get down there among our friends, and I'm desperate to come with you. I wish it was like Star Trek and I could be, beam me up, Denise, beam me up.
It is
But I can't.
lovely. It's such an atmosphere.
I know, I
People
can
are
imagine.
so excited. I've not had. There's not been that atmosphere since 2014.
For years.
This is the first time I felt, and a lot of people are saying that it feels like 2014 again because it's back. You know, the hope is back. The actual reality that it's there, independence is there, and we can grasp it. We can almost touch it. It's there.
Oh,
You know,
I'm so
we can
jealous.
take it.
I'm so jealous. Well, my friend, I'll be watching your speech and applauding you from afar.
Yeah, we have a room of 700
Oh,
independence activists. We're the foot soldiers. SNP had 524 at their virtual conference.
okay. At 36 quid a pop
Like
for a Zoom call. Really? Yeah, the tide is turning. Enjoy yourself today. Give my love
Thank
to
you.
everyone.
Yeah, I will.
And
Good luck in the election, Roddy.
well, we'll see. We'll
You've
see.
got a good chance. I voted for you one.
Aye, good on you.
Don't put
Thanks.
that in, by the way, because I'm probably
Well, at least I'll know I've got one vote or two. John's as well. So thank you, and thanks to John. Sorry we lost him. We'll maybe get him again some other time. But you enjoy yourself, and until I see you, you know, take care of yourself, and everyone else out there. You take care of yourself.
Just before you go, like I went up to Ground Peter and I gave him a cuddle yesterday. I just couldn't help myself, you know, fuck COVID. You know, sorry. I went up to Ground Peter and he looked so well. And he's a very handsome man. And he looked really well and really happy. So just so you know.
Good. God bless him. I love him to bits myself, as you know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
take care, my friend.
You know.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Enjoy.
Bye.
Well, thank you, Denise. Thank you, John. Sorry we lost John. Hopefully we'll get him back. John's an interesting guy. I've known him for years. Good guy. And his delightful wife, Anne-Marie, who's sending me selfies galore, actually, from the conference, as she does. And to Neale Hanvey. Mustn't forget Neale, who started the show for us. And great. I hope you've all enjoyed this as much as I have. We have delayed transmissions so that all of you independent supporters I can enjoy all of the Alba conference. We don't want to be in conflict with it. We are here to support the independence movement, not compete with it. So I hope you will enjoy this and allow us to do this a wee bit later than normal. But until I see you all again and you see me, take care.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.